1970 Ford Thunderbird. The late 1960s Thunderbirds, while not necessarily beautiful, were at least inoffensive in their design. However, in 1970, Ford made a bold change by adding a prominent beak-like feature to the front. This design choice was puzzling, as the focus should have been on the thunder aspect rather than the bird. Despite this odd design decision, the 1970 Thunderbirds still held a certain charm. They were distinctive, standing out in a crowd of more traditionally designed cars. The unique front end, while controversial, gave the T-Bird a personality that couldn't be ignored. It was a statement, a declaration that Ford wasn't afraid to take risks and push the boundaries of automotive design. This period marked an interesting era in car design, where manufacturers were experimenting with bold and unconventional features. The 1970 T-Bird, with its giant beak, is a prime example of this trend. It may not have been to everyone's taste, but it certainly made an impression. This bold approach paved the way for future innovations and showed that sometimes, taking a risk can lead to something memorable and iconic. To delve deeper into such fascinating automotive stories and keep up with our latest content, make sure to stay connected and subscribe for more insights. 1970 Saab Sonnet 3. With American buyers in mind, the third-generation Sonnet hit the market, seemingly influenced by a misinterpretation of American preferences for car design. The elongated front, exaggerated by a massive 5 mph bumper, gave the car an unbalanced look. This exaggerated nose, combined with a disproportionately short tail, resulted in a design that was hard to take seriously. It wasn't until the Saab 900 arrived that the brand started gaining respect in the American market. 1970 Buick Riviera. The second-generation Buick Riviera was an absolute stunner from 1966 to 1969, with sleek lines and hidden headlights that gave it a sporty edge. And then, things took a turn for the worse. At first glance, it might be hard to grasp just how unattractive this redesign was, perhaps because your mind is trying to protect you from the shock. But if you look closer, you'll see it, the grille awkwardly slipping down the front, the rear fenders covering the wheels like out-of-control ivy, and the whole car appearing swollen and bloated. Riviera sales, which had been climbing steadily through the late 60s, plummeted when this poorly designed model arrived in showrooms. Thankfully, it was soon replaced by the controversial yet striking boat-tail Riviera in 1971. The transformation of the Riviera serves as a reminder of how drastically design changes can impact a car's appeal and success. It's fascinating to see how a beloved model can fall from grace so quickly, only to be redeemed by a subsequent redesign. 1970 Porsche 914. Designing a well-proportioned mid-engine car is a tough challenge, but it seems Chevrolet has finally nailed it. The Porsche 914, however, is a different story. Its odd design goes beyond the large gap between the B-pillar and the rear wheel. There's something about the 914, the oddly angled greenhouse, the extremely boxy body, the plain lines, that makes it a quirky-looking car. It's almost as if the 914 embraces its quirky nature. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, we have a soft spot for the 914. Yet, we believe a Porsche should look like the car of your dreams, not just an everyday reality. 1970 AMC Gremlin. The Gremlin was priced at two-thirds the cost of most small cars, fitting since it looked like two-thirds of a car. Despite its appearance, the Gremlin was a stroke of corporate genius, affordable to develop, perfect for the era, and a sales hit by AMC's standards. But did it really need to be so unattractive? Believe it or not, AMC almost went with a shorter version of the Hornet, which design chief Dick Teague claimed was even uglier. Given that he approved the Gremlin, we might question his taste. Curious about more quirky tales and design choices in automotive history? Subscribing to our channel will keep you entertained with stories just like this. 1972 Subaru GL Coupe. Subaru, along with other Japanese automakers, was gradually gaining traction in the US market with smart, efficient, and practical small cars that were sensible, if not particularly stylish. Then they decided to try their hand at stylish, and the result was the Subaru GL. It seems like the car was just a bit too long for the shipping crate, so they chopped off 8 inches from the tail, added a bumper and taillights, and called it a day. 1973 Reliant Robin. The Reliant Robin stands out among three-wheeled vehicles for all the wrong reasons. It's not just unattractive, it exudes desperation. Unlike the more dignified Reliant Regal before it, the Robin looks like a compromise for those unable to afford a full car. Its basic design and wide-eyed appearance acknowledge its status as a substandard vehicle, rarely winning affection. Despite its flaws, the Reliant Robin found a niche for its charm and affordability. Its lightweight build and unique handling made it appealing to budget-conscious drivers. However, its unconventional design raised safety concerns and invited occasional ridicule, particularly its propensity to tip over easily. Nevertheless, for enthusiasts of quirky vehicles, the Reliant Robin remains a memorable piece of automotive history. 1973 Leland P76. British Leland's legacy isn't just about British woes. The P76 proves they spread their woes far and wide across the Commonwealth. Produced by Leland Australia, the P76 was a large car seemingly designed to squash any nostalgia for the empire. Its wedge shape could fit a 44-gallon drum, preferably something flammable. Beyond its unappealing looks, the P76 was typical of Leland's infamous lack of care and quality. Unsurprisingly, after just 2 years and a mere 18,000 units sold, the P76 became history. Curious about more intriguing tales from the automotive world? Subscribing to our channel will keep you informed with stories like these and more. 1974 Sebring Vanguard City Car. Ever wondered how electric cars got labeled as glorified golf carts? Look no further than the City Car, a brainchild, or brain fart, of Sebring Vanguard. Essentially, it resembled a wheelchock with a 2.5 horsepower motor, later upgraded to 6, and a design that probably cost just a few dollars. Originally capable of 40 miles on a charge, it took 6.2 seconds to reach 25 miles per hour, barely 3 mph shy of its top speed. Later renamed the commuter car by Commuter Vehicles in the late 70s, it gained ridiculous bumper extensions that didn't improve its safety. Each ride risked more than just embarrassment. 1974 Vanden Plas 1500. During the 1970s and 80s, the Detroit 3 faced rightful criticism for badge engineering, essentially dressing up lackluster cars with fancy grills to pass them off as something special. However, British Leland took this to an extreme, turning it into what could be considered an art form, albeit one involving questionable taste. Take the Vanden Plas 1500, for example. Built on the dreary Austin Allegro platform, it boasted a stand-up chrome grille, luxurious leather seats, plush carpeting, and even fold-down walnut tables in the rear, perfect for a leisurely lunch while awaiting roadside assistance. Despite these touches, BL charged nearly double the price of the Allegro. Perhaps the ideal customer was someone who admired the Jaguar XJ6 but preferred something smaller and, well, less refined. 1974 Bricklin SV1. Malcolm Bricklin, known for bringing the Subaru 360 and the Yugo to American buyers, seems to have had questionable intentions. His own attempt at creating a car, the safety vehicle one, was a disaster in many ways, especially aesthetically. It featured exaggerated bumpers, narrow windows reminiscent of gunslits, and 1970s-style turbine vane wheels more suited to a Chevy van with shag gin wagon painted in neon colors. Assembly quality was dismal, with body panels warping before even being mounted. Hidden headlights often refused to function, and the cars were notorious for leaks akin to cheesecloth. The hefty gull-wing doors, weighing 90 pounds each, frequently malfunctioned due to faulty hydraulic actuators, sometimes trapping unlucky owners inside. All in all, the Bricklin was as unappealing to look at as it was to own. 1974 Ford Mustang II. Let's set aside the debate on whether the downsized Mustang II was brilliant or a disaster. Instead, let's focus on the Mustang Ghia, which Ford attempted to elevate with luxury touches like opera windows, a padded vinyl roof, and color-matched bumpers. These attempts to inject luxury into a smaller Mustang felt like overkill, especially when it borrowed hubcaps from the Granada. While the Mustang II sold well, the Ghia variant might have been more of a hindrance than a help. If you're intrigued by automotive history and the quirks of iconic models like the Mustang II, consider subscribing to our channel for more engaging discussions and insights. 1975 British Leland Princess. The Princess stands out as another disappointment from across the Atlantic. Initially launched under the Austin, Morris, and Wolseley brands, it eventually became its own mark, perhaps because none of the existing BL brands wanted to claim it. The awkwardly wedge-shaped Princess resembled a hatchback but lacked practicality with its small boot access. It quickly gained a reputation for being unattractive and unreliable. Shortly after its debut, British Leyland collapsed and had to be nationalized, hardly a shocker. 1975 AMC Pacer. The Pacer, AMC's innovative attempt at a wide small car. While it did feature some charming commercials, it ended up being quite the eyesore. The Pacer's extensive glass area was meant to enhance visibility but ended up making drivers feel like they were trapped in a fishbowl. The taillights, resembling cake frosting applied with a spatula, didn't help its case either. In 1978, AMC made it even less appealing with a bulging hood and an upright grille to accommodate a new optional V8 engine. This attempt to boost power only exacerbated the car's heavy glass and poor fuel economy from its existing six-cylinder engines. Ultimately, the Pacer was a misstep in design and execution, appealing to a niche crowd long before it was fashionable to be different. 1977 Lotta Cavalier. The Chevrolet Chevette may have been lackluster, but it avoided being outright ugly. However, Mr. Donald E. Steinbach from Port Falls decided to take matters into his own hands. He applied 350 pounds of Bondo and fiberglass to create a bizarre hybrid, borrowing styling cues from the first-generation Monte Carlo. He managed to sell nearly 100 of these Franken-cars, some resembling El Camino-inspired pickups that were even more ludicrous. Strangely, he named the car after his wife, a move that might have warranted divorce, paired with a misspelling of the Spanish word for gentleman. Unfortunately for Mr. Steinbach, he ended up losing money on the venture, perhaps a bit of cosmic justice. 1977 Datsun 200SX. By the late 1970s, Datsun, later Nissan, had built a solid reputation in the United States with practical economy cars like the B210 and 510, as well as the iconic sports car, the 240Z. However, their introduction of the 200SX was a different story. This rear-wheel drive sports coupe featured a 2.0-liter engine and a grille reminiscent of an electric shaver. Despite its design quirks, complaints about the obstructive C-pillar were few, likely because there were few buyers overall. The 200SX fell short on performance, lacking the sportiness expected and proving too thirsty for economical driving. Its most notable talent turned out to be rusting, something it excelled at with alarming speed and enthusiasm, contributing to its scarcity on the roads today. 1977 Volvo 262C. According to Hemmings, when Henry Ford II visited Volvo's Kalmar plant in Sweden, his team arrived with a fleet of Lincoln Continental Mark Vs, leaving a lasting impression on the Swedes. This led Volvo to pursue their own version, a decision that birthed a regrettable car. Allegedly skipping the clay modeling phase, Volvo sent their 262-gallon coupes to Bertone in Italy, where the roofline was chopped by 2.6 inches, making the car impractical for taller drivers. Despite these shortcomings, around 6,600 units were produced over 5 years, suggesting a market for short individuals with unconventional tastes. 1978 Oldsmobile Cutlass Aeroback. When General Motors decided to downsize its successful midsize cars like the Buick Century and Oldsmobile Cutlass, they opted for a European-inspired look, specifically, a hatchback. The result, as expected, was less than stellar. Although technically not hatchbacks, the Aeroback cars sported a design that consumers simply didn't embrace, leading to dismal sales figures. GM's confidence in the design was misplaced, as they neglected to offer a traditional sedan version initially. Sales suffered, though the wagon and coupe variants fared better. Eventually, GM hurriedly introduced a proper sedan for 1980, while inexplicably keeping the two-door Aeroback until 1981. If you've ever wondered why GM's styling seemed lackluster in the 1980s, this misstep might shed some light. Curious about more tales from automotive history? Subscribing to our channel will keep you informed with stories like these and more.